Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome. This is the Human Butterfly Effect podcast with RDW. I am yours truly, RDW. How is everyone doing today? I hope you guys are having a wonderful week. I hope you've accomplished everything you want to accomplish. I hope you guys are safe, happy, and whole. More importantly, I hope that you are encouraged. And if not, by the end of this podcast, hopefully you would have learned something and I've added a little bright ray of sunshine to your day. And I want to thank you guys for joining us on today. I don't know if you guys know, but April is National Poetry Month. And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm a writer, I'm a reader, but I'm not much of a poet. So we're going to be learning together on this episode. Every episode we're learning together, but especially today. Okay, so in case you haven't heard, April, as I mentioned, is National Poetry Month, and this was launched by the Academy of American Poets back in April of 96. And so this is deemed a special occasion that celebrates poetry, their role in our culture, and also reminding everybody that poetry matters. They say over the years it has become the largest literary celebration in the world, with tens of millions of readers, students, teachers, librarians, booksellers, literary event planners, publishers, families, poets, all of them participate in marking the importance of poetry in our lives. So that's all that I pretty much know about National Poetry Month. And I thought we'll just change it up a little bit on this episode and pay homage, to some of our great poets. And so this is a book that I have been reading. I recently got this book maybe about a couple months ago. And what drew me to this book was the Harlem Renaissance. So this book, um, according to the author, it transports readers to the Harlem Renaissance. This book was inspired by the writers of the Harlem Renaissance best-selling author Nikki Grimes, who uses the golden shovel poetic method to create wholly original poems based on the works of master poets from the Harlem Renaissance era and others in history or throughout that era. So each poem is paired with one of a kind artwork from today's most exciting African American illustrators. And as you will see, I'm going to show you in a moment, they are phenomenal. Now, as I mentioned, I was drawn to this book because of the Harlem Renaissance. I have an affinity for that era. In fact, I think it's an era that we do not talk enough about as Black people, nor as educators. It was to me one of the most overlooked and inadequately discussed event in American and Black history. And I'm going to tell you, I substitute taught in a diverse district for a couple of school years about. And the reason why I say diverse because there were students of all I had the ability to interact with students K through 12. These are students who have a variety of backgrounds, experience, etc. And each school was approximately 700 kids, almost 1,000 kids. So thousands of kids. And during my time of subbing there, I interact. Now, let me tell y'all, I don't mean to go off topic, but I wasn't one of those subs that probably could guess this. I wasn't one of those subs that just took attendance and sat down. That's not what I did. I interacted with the kid, especially if I was doing history or English or literature. Um, and I try to use my knowledge and some of the things that I know because it's the same stuff. They're learning the same stuff. The only thing that's different now is the technology phase. But as far as English and history, it's the same stuff. So whenever I was able or in Black History Month, I would ask the students, have you heard of Harlem Renaissance? Or I would name some of the writers and poets. And out of thousands of kids, only one kid knew, and she kinda, like, vaguely knew, like, she heard of it, but she didn't really know what it was about, but she had heard of it, and, like, she really wasn't educated. I think maybe she knew a name, but at least she knew something. But I say that to say that, even in schools, we don't discuss it enough. These kids, for me, let me just tell you what the Harlem Renaissance era means to me as a writer. It is just, you have to understand the time period of what was going on back then and how it relates today to today's time. See, understanding your history, we think it's boring, we don't care, but it provides context as to what's going on now, not only in your life, but in just the world around you. So, just to give you a brief history lesson, the Renaissance era was one of the greatest great migration period for blacks in our time, okay? In our parents' time, okay? This is back in the early 1900s. And it came on the heels of the Civil War. Now, I would just want to make a footnote to you all. A lot of times when we're discussing race, you'll hear people say, get over it. That was a long time ago. Why do you keep talking about it? That's so misguided and wrong for a variety of reasons. Number one, a lot of the ways and means of how our country and the world works all started with race. See, there's a class system. I know we not really talking about that, but you have to understand there's a class system in every generation or every century or however you want to do the math to calculate it. There's always somebody that's at the bottom of the food chain that has less value, that's deemed less valuable or unimportant or unworthy. Like right now, how we attacking these immigrants. But I digress. The reason why that's important because you have to understand the time period and what was going on and why that makes the Harlem Renaissance of great importance, not only for Black people, but in American history. Um, as I mentioned, it came on the heels of the civil rights. Not civil rights, I'm sorry, the Civil War, excuse me, the Civil War. And what the reason why I brought up race is a lot of us think that's when everything ended and started going right for Black people. That's misguided. Yes, slavery was ended. That's what the Civil War was about. That's what they were fighting over. Some people wanted it to end, other wanted it to keep going. That's what the whole war was about. Slavery was abolished, but racism was still rampant. That's what the civil rights era, and that didn't happen to the late 60s. It was always 1970. And I have encouraged my listeners to do the math. Take 2025 and subtract. You Google it, you do Siri, Alexa, whatever your preference is, and see the exact date of when the Civil Rights Act was passed. The reason why that's important is because that's when blacks, as well as other minorities, including women, got their rights. This country has had a history of what's the word I want to use? Disenfranchising individuals, and the root of that have fallen on minorities. It haven't always been blacks, but they have fallen on who's deemed the lesser of us. And there's a certain class of or culture of people who make those decisions. And sadly to say, they aren't you and I. So that's what makes the Harlem Renaissance, in my view, so phenomenal because you got these people, you got this transition in the world. Slavery was a thing for a long time, and now it's no more. So you got these black people that are free, but to kind of give y'all context to relate it to current times, they ain't got no 401k. Some of y'all crying about the markets, rightly so. You upset how the tariffs and all this other stuff that's going on in our world economically. But if you understood your history, it was a point in time more than once, but this is one of them when people who had nothing did great things. And so they're coming out of slavery. These people ain't got no savings, they ain't got no money, they ain't got no cars. They gotta go. And so they migrated northward. That's how the manufacturing, aka automotive industry, took its boom, because even though racism was still rampant, and you got to understand, in that time period, we take for granted the ability, the freedoms that we have to go to school where we want, to work where we want, to bank where we want, to live where we want, to drive where we want, to date who we want. And we forget that we come from a country where these things were once illegal, you know. And so that's why all of that is important as it regards to this movement. First of all, you got a bunch of people that have nothing. They migrate north. A lot of them went into automotive industry. That's why you have a lot of black people who work at the plant. And no, they're not the only ones, but that's where that come from, okay? Because the north was more advantageous for work. And these people needed work, okay? But another group of them, and they say it was almost a million. I don't know the numbers, but another group of them, they went further north to New York, and they started using their gifts. They were writers, they were musicians, they were poets, they were dancers, they were actors. They had a variety of gifts and talents. That's important for two reasons, because A, that became their bread and butter. You got to understand these people had nothing. And I just want to take a moment. I remember a time when someone told me I was writing a book, and it was at one of the lowest points in my life, and they made the comment that I need to get my life together first. And I thought, so rude, so ignorant. I can't write. That's free. Okay, maybe it costs $1 for a pen and a piece of paper. Maybe I had to borrow. I don't remember how I got a pen and a piece of paper back then, but I was able to find a pen and a piece of paper, and I was able to write. What's wrong with that? Especially when we come from people, or we've had a race of people who literally did that. Everybody didn't go to the plant. You know what I'm saying? Put that in context. That's very important. Another reason why it is important for American culture is because this was the first time that the world at large was introduced to the essence of black people. They didn't know nothing about black people. Some of them still don't know nothing about black people. But back then they really didn't know. All they knew they were slaves, and slaves was over with. They didn't know about our talents, our gifts, our resources, our mannerisms. And so that's why the Harlem Renaissance era is so important, because that was the first time that all of that was introduced to the world at large, as well as created economic streams. And as we see today, um, still impacting generations. That's what you call a legacy. So this is what drew me to this book. Um, but before I get into the book, I'm gonna talk a little bit about author Grimes, um, and just a little bit about this book, and read you guys a couple of poems. But before I do all of that, you have to look at this artwork. As I mentioned, this book has artwork, says all of the artwork was done by black people, black illustrators. And I assumed that by looking at the pictures. I had looked at the pictures before I read that synopsis of the book. And I was thinking to myself how these pictures create so much emotion. They're so detailed. You know how they say a picture is worth a thousand words? Like these pictures to me are real life of that. So I just took a couple of now these is screenshots, y'all. Don't be mad at me if they not. Some of the pictures, like this one, how it looks light in the background, that's how it really looks. These are screenshots, y'all. I ain't do no Photoshop. We don't roll like that. I want to just share the images. So please excuse me if they're not as quality as you would like. But to me, they are just phenomenal. They just say so much. They're so detailed. They're just they bring back, even for me, so many memories, feelings of nostalgia, just looking at them, of intrigue, of hope. The colors are just so vivid. They just say so much without saying anything at all. So I wanted to share some of those images with you all from this book. Again, if you guys are just now joining us, we are talking about One Last Word with Nikki Grimes. And actually, I want to take that down because I want you guys to see these pictures. So I just thought this book was phenomenal. As I mentioned, I was drawn to it because I knew it was about or was inspired by the Harlem Renaissance era. Um, I'm not really into poetry. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm a writer. I love to read. I do a lot of writing. I do a lot of reading. I'm not really a poet. And they know ain't really. I'm not a poet. When I was a kid, I did write some poetry, but I'm not well versed in that style of writing. So this is new to me. I'm relatively a babe in this genre. Nonetheless, I enjoyed this book. As I mentioned, artistry, the artistry alone was just phenomenal. And she also have in the back of the book like a dictionary, if you will, of all of these different poets from the era, and it's like just a little synopsis of who they are. So this book is a great teaching tool, learning tool. It's visually appealing. It's really a great book. I haven't finished reading it, but I have read a lot of it, and I just love it. I think it's an awesome book. You should be able to find this book anywhere where books are sold. And this is not a paid advertisement, but you should be able to find it. I found mine on Amazon. Again, this is not official advertisement. This is a real life authentic review. This is my book. What you're looking at is my physical book. So, you know, did nobody pay me. Nikki Grimes has never heard of Rosie. Okay. RDW, none of that. But who knows? Some of her fans may be listening. If you are a fan, chime in, leave your comments, reach out to us. Go to our website, join our knowledge cafe, check in. Don't be afraid to communicate. We want to create a safe space for us to just communicate online. There's so much negativity online. Also, in the Knowledge Cafe, we have resources, like books or jobs or writing contests or just community resources. It's free. All you need is an email address, sign up. Like any other online community. So come, we trying to grow it and get it going. So please join us. Go to our website rdwcreations.com. You see it scrolling across the bottom. Okay, so enough of that. Let's talk about Nikki Grimes. Now, Nikki Grimes is an American author, a children, young adult author, and poet. She is. the Children's Literature Legacy Award winner. And she has a number of collections and other accolades associated with her. Um, she is a phenomenal writer. You know, what I like about her is the fact that you're writing children's books or books geared to young people, and they are full of so much substance. Like, this book is supposed to be for kids, but this ain't no kid book. There's so much that we all could learn and be inspired by this book. The showmanship is wonderful. The artistry is phenomenal. I mean, that alone is just, there's so many other pictures. I only showed you guys a few, but I like this book and I'm really honored to have read it, to be introduced to her. Like I said, I'm not a poetry connoisseur, if you will. It's not my thing. And that's no disrespect, but it's not my thing. It's sort of a romantic language. And I don't see myself as a romantic, so maybe that's why I don't, maybe I need to get into it. I don't know. Maybe I'm turning a new leaf. But anyhow, what also is interesting about this book is her method of poetry. So she uses something called the golden shovel method. To my understanding, this is a relatively new poetry form, if you will. It was invented by fellow poet Terrence Hayes back in 2017. And um the way this works, at least to my understanding, y'all help me out now, but the way this works is they take they create a poem off of another author's work. And so what they do is they use a line from that poem or sentence, and they make each word of that line the last word of each line of their poem. And if it sounds complicated, it is. To my understanding, it's the most challenging method of poetry there is, or one of them. And again, it's relatively new, but it's interesting and it changes the tone or I think it just changes it. And it's like almost artistry. I mean, writing is artistry, right? But to be able to create a new poem off of someone else's poem using one line, and they take each word from that line and make it the last line of their new poem. So I had wrote one down. I was gonna read to you guys. I'm like, no, I'm not a poet. And y'all not gonna laugh at me. I'll laugh at myself, but we're not gonna laugh at me, okay? Not on no poetry, okay? But I wanted to read another reason why I'm very intrigued and inspired and just in awe of Nikki Grimes is what led her to writing. And so I just wanted to read a short little piece of the preface here of this book. Um, it begins I was 13 years old when I read my poetry aloud in front of an audience for the first time. The event took place at the County Cullen Library in New York City, a local branch named after one of the leading poets of the Harlem Renaissance. A lover of poetry for most of my young life, I was well aware of the impact of County Cullen, Langston Hughes, Paul Laurence Dunbar, and all the other African American poets of the era. After all, I was a young poet born in the very Harlem for which many of their careers were launched. As I ascended the stage that day, I felt as if I were stepping into the stream of the Renaissance poets who had come before me. I feel their weight and their influence still. The elegance and power of their poetry gave me wings. At the beginning of my career, my focus was on the prose and poetry for the adult market. Reading my work at college campuses, I often shared the stage with the likes of Nikki Giovanni, Sonia Sanchez, and Amiri Baraka. Ultimately, though, I switched my emphasis to literature for children and young adults. Nonetheless, the poets of the Harlem Renaissance remained my primary influence. So that's just a piece of the preface of this book. And again, this is a book of substance. This is supposed to be for young people. I think it's for everyone. It's definitely worth a look. Um, if you love the Harlem Renaissance, if you love poetry, if you're just a reader or a writer like me, I definitely think this is worth your time. So before we wrap this edition up, I wanted to read a couple of poems from the book. The first one is called Calling Dreams, and this is by Georgia Douglas Johnson. This is a short poem, but I really enjoyed this. So it says, the right to make my dreams come true. I ask, nay, I demand of life, nor shall fate's deadly contraband impede my steps, nor countermand. Too long my heart against the grind has beat the dusty years around. And now at length I rise, I wake, and stride into the morning break. And again, that was called Calling Dreams by Georgia Douglas Johnson. I just thought that was so just the first line of this poem is in bold, and it says the right to make my dreams like the right. I got the right. Wait a minute. I asked. No, I demand of life. Nor shall fate's deadly contraband impede my steps, nor countermand. What? I'm not stopping. What? My dreams. What? That's how I take that. Too long my heart against the ground has beat the dusty years around. Too long I've been on the grind. Why can't I dream? Well, I don't have the right to make my dreams come true. Too long. I done been through too much. Too long. And now, at length, I rise, I wake like a phoenix rising, right? And stride into the morning. Wait a minute, I got this. I done been through too much. Wait, what? The right to make my dreams. Let me ask. No, I demand. To me, that's like powerful. So again, the title of that was Calling Dreams by Georgia Douglas Johnson. That was my dramatic poetry reading, y'all. I told you I'm not a poet. How did I do? I don't know. But I really enjoyed that poem. It's so inspiring and it's true and it make you think. It's just one that I enjoy from this book. Now, the last poem I'm gonna read, I actually shared this imagery. And I just want you guys to look at this picture. Like, it says so much. The title of the poem that goes with this is called I Leave the Glory Days. And when I first I saw the book, I was looking closely. And as they say, a picture is worth a thousand words. There's so much that this says. Like, first of all, the sun, just look at the position of the sun in the pictures. Her obviously obtaining some knowledge here. And I liked how she has like this little look at the typewriter, it's like a little flower on there. What does that symbolize? Growth. Look at the top in the blue. It's like illustrations of flowers or shrubbery or something like that. So growth, right? So I just look at the people. Look at how the bottom of her hair, the braid, it kind of comes down and it's almost like a shadow or a cover for some of the people. I just thought the image, I just liked it. I like the colors. I just liked it. But when I took the screenshot and added it to the podcast, I didn't realize it was part of a poem that I'm going to read to you. So this poem is by Nikki Grimes. It's called I Leave the Glory Days. I leave the glory days of the Harlem Renaissance, swim to the surface of the bowl of years, and take a sweet breath. Standing taller than ever, I feel full of something strange and delicious. Hope. Teacher was right. The past is a ladder that can help you. Keep climbing. I find my sister in the living room. Surprise her with a tight squeeze and a swing into the air. We're gonna be all right, sis. And actually, I misread that because it really says, we're going to be all right, sis. I whisper. You and me, we're going to be okay. I know life will be rough, but we've got the stuff to make it. And that was I Leave the Glory Days by Nikki Grimes. I leave the glory days, she says, of the Harlem Renaissance. Glory. Think about that. Glory. Stepping into the sunlight, the sunshine, coming out of darkness. That was a period of darkness for Black people, darkness for the entire world. There was only certain benefactors of that period. Swim to the surface, she says, of the bowl of years. Swim to the surface, huh? And take a sweet breath. Standing taller than ever, I feel full of something strange and delicious. Hope. Teacher was right. The past is a ladder that can help you keep climbing. I find my sister in the living room, surprise her with a tight squeeze and a swing into the air. We're going to be all right, sis. You and me, we're going to be okay. I know life will be rough, but we've got the stuff to make it. So, again, that was I Leave the Glory Days by Nikki Grimes. I enjoyed both of those poems. I hope you guys did too. Again, if I made a mistake, got something wrong, chime in. Leave comments. Don't be scared to be the first one. Don't be scared. Don't be scared. We're trying to grow our community. It's room for everyone, including me. Maybe I got something wrong. Maybe you're a fellow author. Maybe you have a book you want me to talk about or review. Again, April is National Poetry Month, and I just thought this is right on time since I had this book. We're gonna talk about some other poems and poets or poetry, in honor and pay homage to them, you know, through this month. Why not? So if you got something you want me to check out, hit me up. Don't forget our website is scrolling below. And I want to thank you all for joining me on today. It is a pleasure, really, to do these podcasts and to be with you. Thank you for all the positive feedback. Keep it coming. Keep your suggestions coming. And until next time, y'all take care of yourself, right? Be encouraged. It's going to be all right. That's what we just heard. It's going to be all right. We got the stuff. It's going to get rough, but we got the stuff to make it. See y'all next time.